Conduct of business, item B, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a time and expenses contract with Integrity Maintenance Solutions Americas, Inc. to provide engineering and technical support related to natural gas pipeline work in and around San Bruno.
Honorable Mayor, Council members, good evening. In my presentation tonight, I will focus on two aspects of this issue. First, what is the benefit and what is the purpose for this action for the city, and also how the city will pay for it. The purpose and the benefit of this action is to minimize the impact on our residents of any ongoing action by PG&E. Since the unfortunate incident of the September night of 2010, based on NTSB and CPUC requirements, PG&E performs system-wide inspection, pressure testing many of their transmission lines. Our community, understandably, is highly sensitive around any PG&E activity in our community. This contract will provide us with technical support and technical expertise, pipeline experience, assisting us in our oversight, providing constructive input in our approval process of this ongoing activity performed by PG&E. This is a service level above and beyond any requirement to represent the interest of our residents the best way possible. One maybe the easiest way to describe how this service really looks like in real life, I will describe one example of what happened just last night. A few weeks ago, PG&E applied for an encroachment permit to hydro test one small section of line 132 at Hilly Station. Last week, PG&E communicated with us that is their intent to pressure test that section of the pipe using nitrogen instead of water. Having this expertise available to us was possible for us to assess the increased risk involved, also assessing the possible consequences and developing possible mitigating solutions for those possible consequences, such as last night when PG&E performed this test, they had to close the road to divert the traffic for the duration of the test. Also, they had to install filters to filter the air vented through this process to prevent any release of smell in the neighborhood and to communicate properly with the neighborhood. As a matter of fact, the installation of these air filters for any purging or any testing in the city or around the city in the last few months is the result of this increased oversight and technical support provided by this consultant. Is our intent, our recommendation is to pay for these expenses using the trust fund. I am available for any question you might have.
Any questions of staff?
Through the
Ken?
chair, Mr. Mayor. You mentioned that the main concern is for the residents of the community. So when you gave this example of what happened last night, can you explain what the residents knew about what was going to happen? I'm just trying to get an idea of what we do and what PG&E typically does, you know, when there are residents within the direct vicinity of a testing.
Initially, a few weeks back, when the approval process started, PG&E sent out letter to the residents around the site, communicating them about the intent of the testing, how much is intended to last the testing, what possible, what they will see and what they will experience. Also, they canvassed the neighborhood, knocked on doors in the last 2 days, updating them of the evolution of the testing process. And also, I was advised, and the city was advised, that they were told also that they are using nitrogen instead of water, which was the last minute change in the process. Also, they were communicated with about the extended hours. They ended up working on the site until 2 o'clock, 2 a.m. This morning, and they had a approval to finish their work tonight at 8 o'clock, not later than 8 o'clock. But the residents really just wanted this work to be finished and to be able to go back to their normal life. This was very disruptive in that neighborhood. All of those homes are very close to that site, and this was a disruptive ongoing activity to that neighborhood.
If I could add just very briefly, the director has properly, in my view, attempted to provide some of the information or give you a little bit of a flavor for the type of work and the benefit that it's provided. I would like to caution, however, that we are not taking over or assuming responsibility in any manner for PG&E's work. And in fact, in many of the instances where the consultant has assisted us, and we hope will continue to be able to perform those very valuable services, things don't always go as we would hope and expect. And the work last night, for example, went much longer than we had anticipated, and that I believe was identified to the residents. It's just an example of the type of coordination that what the director has given you is some of the examples of the type of coordination that we're utilizing. Continues to be an ongoing, nearly everyday process to address, to try and stay half a step behind instead of 3 steps behind the work efforts that PG&E is undertaking within the community. Our interest, as the director indicated, is that we provide the best protection and representation of residents' interests, as well as providing or attempting to provide the highest quality work performance and resident interface. It is not this consultant, nor it is the city's responsibility to provide that interface directly, but we're doing our best to try and make sure that the work is being done in an accountable and appropriate manner, given the heightened level of sensitivities that exist within San Bruno.
Through the chair, I would use a cliche, just kind of a trust but verify, giving us the tools, having some expertise. I think we've had somebody who's been up there, Marty Medina, working up there diligently, putting his heart and dedication into this, and I think this helps give a tool. And I think with what we've experienced, what we've gone through, I think our residents would want us to do what it takes to try to ensure the best effort is put forward, and that things are checked, double-checked, and that we're all doing what's right for the safety of the community.
During the decommissioning of line 132 and also the hydro testing of the southern portion of 132, this expert was on site during the whole time of the performance of those 2 projects to support Mari with additional expertise in the field.
Through the chair.
Irene?
Is this person, are we anticipating any work to be done by PG&E or emergency things that this group can also interface with? For example, if something happens on 7th Avenue, let me rephrase that. Is this contract only for the Glenview neighborhood, or is this for any place in San Bruno that the residents might be concerned? And if that, well, answer me that part, and then I have another question.
Would be our call, and they were called on for work in the whole city and around us. How
Okay.
I said they were called in for work performed outside of the cities, either further up north when the relining of 132 took place in South City, or when the theater testing was taking place further down south. Will be our intent when anything will happen which need additional expertise. Our department, the city, doesn't have specifically any pipeline expertise, and that is our assumption that this expertise will help us to provide a better service to our residents. Yes, they will be called on.
Okay, and then if something happens and a resident calls PG&E and say they smell gas and that PG&E does not respond in a timely manner, can that person call you or call the city and get the number of the contract? I mean, how are we going to work it if somebody calls and says, PG&E is not responding to me, I'm very concerned, what can you do?
Our process so far was to how the city manager emphasized, and that was one of the main focus on our part so far, not to try to do PG&E's job. It's our intent to hold them accountable and make them responsible to do their job. They should have the expertise to perform their job according to all of the requirement, and how our role is displayed in this to hold them responsible, accountable. In that specific instance, the city will make sure that they will respond as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. That's comforting.
Michael?
So I wanted to just clarify that the role IMS will play is really in mitigating potential quality of life type issues and not safety type issues in these type of inspections.
So IMS is, the purpose of the contract is to provide assistance and support to staff in overseeing and permitting PG&E construction work in San Bruno. That covers both of the types of issues that you've addressed. But again, I want to emphasize that they don't do the work, we don't do the work, and neither of us, the City of San Bruno nor its consultant, assume responsibility for the work. But it does cover both of the bases that you identified, and any others where we believe that there is something that just needs to be looked at a little bit more closely.
Okay. Because there is, I think, some level of concern if PG&E, that is the trusted supplier of gas, can't be completely trusted to do this work, and the CPUC, which oversees that utility, also can't be trusted to do this, that we have to actually go and hire somebody else to oversee all of this, is on a larger scale concerning to me, and probably should be to most other cities around here.
Yeah, so I want to emphasize that we don't, let's just go backwards a little bit. Before the tragic events of September 9th, 2010, the city pretty routinely issued encroachment permits to PG&E and to other utilities without a high level of scrutiny to the work and to how the work was to be performed. It is within this arena of the additional and frequent work that's going on in our neighborhoods, the level of interest that our residents are now expressing in the work that's going on within our city, that gives us a impetus to make sure that the work is to the best of our ability, and we have no pipeline expertise, again, or at least, well, now we do a little bit, but not a lot. The intent really is to simply be able to do what we do, which is just simply evaluate, should we allow this thing to go forward in our street or in our right-of-way, and have we done basic due diligence to understand what the work is, why it's necessary, and what's the best way to do it. It's really not a regulatory or a, we're not attempting to get into anybody else's territory, simply to do the job that is now required of the city of San Bruno. And that's different than the job that was previously required of the city of San Bruno with relation to routine PG&E work in our community.
And our sole recourse in the event that we don't agree with PG&E's approach is that we just wouldn't issue an encroachment permit and not allow them to do the work.
In most cases, in cases where the work is being performed in the right-of-way and an encroachment permit is applicable, then that is and has been a very effective means of managing the compliance with what the city believes is a necessary performance. We have, I would say, it received PG&E's attention in a high level of interest in meeting the standards that we put out. Clara mentioned, for example, the work that has gone on outside of our city limits, but adjacent to our community. PG&E has no real, we have no real authority to say you can't do that work, or you must do it this other way. But we've, I think, been reasonably successful in achieving a level of attention and coordination to at least listening to and trying to address the city's interests.
Okay. And one more point directly on the contract. I believe the way it's structured is we'll reimburse this contractor for all actual expenses plus 15%. And that to me doesn't sound reasonable, but I'm wondering if that's standard practice, that they would uplift their expenses by that much.
Is a very standard practice, and even with that additional expense level and the 15%, at the end, their average hourly rate comes out pretty reasonable versus any other consultant services provided to us in this area.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments or action?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to introduce the resolution for adoption.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Salazar.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye.